everyone, welcome back. It's the Louis Vuitton Princess, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys a really special bag. So today we're going to be talking all about the Louis Vuitton limited edition Lockit MM. So this is one of my all-time favorite bags. I've had it for quite a few years, and I kind of put this one in the category of being one of my first like big girl bags. It definitely was one of the first like more expensive bags that I purchased. It was still pre-owned. I definitely could not have afforded it new. I believe these bags retailed around the 3K mark. So new was absolutely out of the question for me when I bought this bag. And that was 3K back in the mid 2010s, because it's not uncommon to hear about Louis Vuitton bags retailing for 3K now, but back then that was very uncommon. So 3K was out of the question for me affording this bag at that time. I was still very, very young, did not have a ton of money. So this one I ended up purchasing pre-loved, and it's been one of my favorite bags ever since. When I first got into Louis Vuitton, it was one of those bags that just really stood out to me, and I was like, I have to have it. I'm gonna save up for this bag. And I successfully did. I purchased this bag as a little treat for myself after one of my first internships, actually at the job that I still work at now. But at the time I was just an intern, and this was a little treat I purchased back then. I think I paid, it was either like $11.25 or $12.50. It was something like that I paid for this bag. I don't remember the exact number. I purchased it off of eBay. Again, this would have been in the mid 2010s. So like 2014, 15, 16, somewhere in there. And I absolutely adore this bag. So some of the things about this bag that I think are great to share with people, and this bag initially kind of like got a response of people wanting to see more of it when I posted it in my Louis Vuitton's Classiest Bags video. This is a bag that a lot of people don't know about, to be honest. They really sleep on this bag because there are quite a few versions of this bag. There is the traditional Lockit, which is the version that a lot of people are more familiar with, and then you have the limited edition Lockit, which is this more kind of like hard-sided, sturdier sturdier handles. This is the, I guess, kind of like premium Lockit. And then the Lockit was made in several limited edition variations. There's one called the Fetish Lockit, where there is no vachetta at all. The handles and trim are also monogram canvas. There's a Kusama Lockit. There's a lace Lockit. So there's a lot of variation with the Lockits, but my personal favorite is the just kind of like traditional monogram premium limited edition Lockit MM. And this bag is featured in the PM, MM, and GM sizes. The PM is pretty small. I'd kind of put it comparable with like a Kelly. This is the MM, which I feel like is perfect for just like everyday handbag use. And the GM is kind of like a big luggage piece. So this is definitely, in my opinion, the ideal if you're looking for a handbag. I would always vote for the MM. So some features about this bag that I really, really, really enjoy is just kind of starting off the bat with what's immediately visible, and that is these handles. These handles are super, super, super pretty. You can just see the craftsmanship with the stitching, just super gorgeous handles. Louis Vuitton does not put handles like this on a lot of their bags. You typically only see these handles on some of, again, those mid 2010s like premium bags. Like you see them here on the Lockit, you see them on the Louis Vuitton Ascot. And that was another sort of like experimental Louis Vuitton era where they were really trying to make a premier bag, a premium bag, a, signature, kind of like up their bag like the Birkin. And so a lot of the premium bags that you see in that era, like this one, the limited edition Lockit, and I also mentioned the Louis Vuitton Ascot, they all feature these kind of like Birkin-esque handles, as opposed to the traditional Louis Vuitton vachetta handles that have, you know, the metal hardware and they kind of flop down. They feature these, you know, very structural, prominent handles. So it was definitely an era that Louis Vuitton was trying to elevate themselves in canvas. And a lot of the modern era, what we see is Louis Vuitton is trying to elevate themselves in leather. And I've talked about this in the past, that I honestly feel like most of Louis Vuitton's reaches to elevate themselves in leather have flopped. Like they have not been successful, I think, the way they wanted them to be. And that's why, you know, again, I just feel like Louis Vuitton is never going to get rid of canvas, because all of their ventures in trying to like venture solidly into leather have flopped. And to be honest, I wish they would let go of trying to venture into canvas, and they would just, or I'm sorry, they would let go of trying to venture into leathers, and instead they would just go back to trying to make a, you know, very much like premium classic monogram, classic damier premium style bag, because I feel like that is what this gives. And I feel like if they had stuck to that trajectory back then, they'd probably be further along, because once again, this bag retailed back then around 3K. I really feel like if Louis Vuitton was to put out a bag, you know, like this or similar to this in the modern era now, which they probably will. But if they were, I feel like this would be something that they would be trying to market for 4K, 5K. Like, I really feel like they would be pushing something like this, something that looks this luxurious, this Birkin-esque, this premier. I feel like they would really be trying to push, for a high price point, because to be honest, they push much lower quality bags for higher price points. So I feel like this would be very premier, and I feel like they kind of abandoned and jumped ship on this era too quickly. Probably it was a result of, again, back then 3K was crazy. People were buying, you know, Louis Vuitton bags back then for 700, 900, you know, under $1,000. 3K was just not resonating with a lot of people. But again, I wish they would revisit the idea, and I would not be shocked at all if they did a Lockit limited edition reboot within the next couple of years. I honestly feel like that's the direction that they're going to go. And again, you know, I've made a lot of predictions about Louis Vuitton over the years. For those of you guys who have followed me on my blog, you've heard a lot of those predictions, and a lot of those predictions have come true. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is the route that they try to take next. Again, you know, Louis Vuitton, if you're listening, because I know y'all be spying on people, bring me to the table, baby. Hire me, like, please, because I be having all these ideas. I always have my ears to the street. Like, I know what the people want, and I know what the people will pay for. So if you're spying on me, you know, hit me up, you know, drop me a line. Anyways, so I really love this bag. That's the first thing. The second thing that really stands out when you first see this bag is the kind of hard-sidedness of the bag, of the leather. This is a weird bag because, like, I say hard-sided, but it's kind of like in the middle. Like, it's not soft-sided, but it's not hard-sided. It's like in the mid. It's mid, like, because this is still squishy, you know, you can still squish it, but it still is, you know, very firm in its structure, and it has a shape. Now, if you do not store this bag properly, that shape can be lost, but it does generally maintain its shape pretty well on its own. And I think that very structured monogram really does stand out just in, you know, looking at this bag. Another feature of this bag that I feel like is really prominent is the longer clochette. Again, I feel like this was part of that like experimental trying to put out a bag that looked very premier. You know, the Birkins have their little clochettes, but I feel like a short clochette might not have given the look. Like, I just don't feel like it would have given, you know, the luxury sort of look they were going for. But the long clochette really grabs attention because you have so much canvas here that this contrast is really attention grabbing. You also have very cute little lock that kind of like dangles on the side here from its own post, which was kind of neat with this bag. And this is the pull tab, very neat. And this pull tab actually can lock. You take this metal piece here, it goes through here, and you put the lock through. So very well thought out features with this bag, again giving us, you know, like Birkin-esque sort of vibes, except for they went with a side as opposed to having it on the front. And I'm certain they did that because if they had done the locking mechanism and reoriented this bag in some way to have it on the front, it would have just given Birkin like too much. So I definitely feel like that's why they opted for that. So the bag is very well crafted. The canvas, I feel like, just blends together so nicely on this bag. Like, I feel like this bag was stitched together so well. Again, you see how everything is like very symmetrical, very aligned. This is before Louis Vuitton got sloppy. I say this to people all the time. One of the questions that people always ask me is, what is the best era to buy Louis Vuitton in? Because everybody knows that I do vintage bags. The best eras to buy Louis Vuitton in are that 2003 to like 2013, 14. That's a pretty big chunk. And there definitely were some flop offs in that era. There definitely were some pieces that fell off in quality. So I would really make that range more like 2000, or actually I can go back further. I'd really make that range like 1980s to like 2005, and then I'd kind of cut out that little middle era and come back and do like a 2008 to 2013, 14. Those are the best eras to buy Louis Vuitton. That is when they were making bags that were very well crafted. Things were symmetrical, they were even, they were aligned. You know, we weren't seeing all this like misalignment, sloppiness, sloppy stitching, you know, sloppy construction. That was not a thing. That's all post 2014, 15. And I would say, honestly, that's probably post when Louis Vuitton started becoming very, very, very mainstream, especially with the Neverfull. They were kind of moving more into like mass production, and the quality started to deteriorate. You can literally look at this bag and look at the features of this bag up close, and you can visibly see this is not a mass produced bag. Somebody put time into this, into shaping this leather, into oriented this leather, into stitching it. This is a bag that took time. And you know, as a side note, I always tell people that of like, one of the biggest reasons why I'm so big into buying vintage is because the vintage bags are better quality. People put time in them. It sounds absolutely ridiculous to be paying all of these thousands that people are paying for these bags now, and they're already like falling apart and misaligned. You can literally tell the quality of this bag as well with the glazing. This bag has a ton of glazing around the perimeter here, and there is not a single crack, scratch, or anything in this glazing. You have Louis Vuitton bags now that the glazing starts like melting off with just like one use. You know, I always kind of like rag on Empreinte, and everybody wonders why. And that's because the Empreinte had glazing issues from the beginning, and it still has glazing issues. When Empreinte first came out, all of the influencers, they all ran out to do Empreinte because I'm sure they were probably getting paid or getting other little perks to really push Empreinte hard. And you know, when I talked about this back then, I'm gonna set this down. But when I talked about this back then, a lot of people said like, oh, I was crazy, I was a hater, I was like all this stuff because I was saying they were paying people. Now, I said all of this before like the modern day word influencer existed. Like, I was saying this, like, no, they're paying people or giving them something to promote these concepts that they're putting out. I said it a long time ago. I'm not going to drop names. If you're in the community, you know exactly who I'm talking about. But, you know, there were some of the bags that I talked about very specifically where this was obvious. That was the Flower Hobo. That was the Graceful. And it was on Prant. And it was all in this same sort of era, time frame of like these mid to late 2010s, where all of a sudden you just look up one day and everybody has it. Like, I remember one day I looked up and just everybody had a Graceful. The bag hadn't even hit the streets yet, but like every main person had one. They had the Graceful. They all had the Flower Hobo. They all had them Prant, like way before anybody else had it. One day they all just had it and they promoted it endlessly. And the most important part of that saga is that none of those people have them anymore. They all just had them one day, and then the next day you looked up and they were just gone. They sold them, they got rid of them. Who even knows what the arrangement was for that? But it was very clear that they were using people on social media as influencers to try and push and promote a lot of these ideas. And I will say there's one person who, again, I'm not going to say names, but there was one person in particular who pushed Emprant very, very, very hard, and then became very, very vocal about defects with Emprant, particularly with the glazing, because that's how I started this tangent, particularly about the glazing with Emprant items. And it was never really a person who I personally resonated with, so I did not watch a lot of her content. But I did find it interesting, like checking in on her, like kind of shortly after that. And I seen she basically has become a straight up like Chanel girly now. She really doesn't even do anything with Louis Vuitton at all really anymore. And it really just kind of gave like Emprant was really kind of like the last straw for her. Or it might have been the last straw for whatever partnership she had with Louis Vuitton when she came out and very vocally started talking about like how defective the Emprant line was. I feel like that's what it really was. But anyways, I guess I just probably need to film another video on here called just like Louis Vuitton tea, where I can share all these little gossipy things. So we're going to jump back into the Lockit. So nonetheless, moving back onto the Lockit and where I left off, the Lockit has beautiful glazing, no glazing issues. Again, this is not a new bag. This is a bag that has been around for a decade at this point. No glazing issues. So why people are buying bags for $3K coming out the store and they have glazing issues within the first week, it's absurdity. So now moving on to other features of the Lockit. It has feet. It has little feetsies, and I love bags that have little feetsies because it's always a pain when, you know, you want to be able to set your bag down somewhere. You know, I'm a very high maintenance girly with my bags, and you know, sometimes I try not to look so high maintenance with the bags, and I am, to be honest, but I get to be like a little bit more laid back when the bags have little feetsies because I feel more comfortable with sitting them down somewhere. And I always thought that was just so stupid and ridiculous with the Almas having a leather bottomed bag. I believe the Alma GMs, which I have 2 of those, have feetsies on the bottom, but I thought it was so ridiculous having a Vachetta leather bottom bag that had no feet. So if you set it down anywhere and there's like anything present, you're just gonna have this big ugly mark. I thought that was crazy. Anyways, it has little feetsies. Now we're gonna go to the inside of the bag, and I do have it stuffed because I stuff all my bags. I don't even know what this is. It's some sort of scarf. I just find things sometimes. But anyways, here's the interior. Again, this is giving luxury. The bag is lined in leather on the inside. Again, we're really looking at this $3K price point. We have a leather, soft leather. It's like a burgundy purple lined inside. And this bag was made in France. And I don't know if I can find the date code. It's in here somewhere. I had this bag authenticated years ago. Oh, here's the little thing. Louis Vuitton Lockit MM monogram. So it's M40606 Lockit MM monogram. But anyways, so this bag has a zipper section right here, fairly large zipper section. Like, it's deep. As you can see, my whole hand is in there, and I have long nails, and they actually gave you a big zipper for the zipper section. Like, thank God. Yeah, see, there's a big zipper on here. Usually they give you those teeny zippers, which is really annoying. And there are 2 pockets on this side, 2 pockets here for, you know, phone, wallet, whatever. But again, this is just like a beautiful interior bag. You have a interior leather, very unique color. I don't think I've seen that particular color very much in Louis Vuitton. And it's a very premium soft leather on the interior there. A lot of times Louis Vuitton likes to line with Alcantara, which is that sort of like soft beige material, but this is a leather lined bag, and I think that's so beautiful. That just screams, you know, this is a premium piece. And so again, I just feel like this was a cause that Louis Vuitton gave up on too quickly. I feel like they really should have stayed the course with designing a premium, you know, traditional canvas leather bag, instead of running off and producing like very like low tier, I would say, leather items with defect issues that they have yet to work out to this day. As always, I really hope you guys enjoy this video, and I will also end on the note that I always like to share, that everything I share in these videos are my opinions. They are not facts. I am not a representative in any capacity of LVMH. These are just my personal opinions. I am just an individual person, and if you do not agree with my opinions, that's perfectly fine. You can either articulate that respectfully, you can keep it to yourself, or you can argue with your mama, not me. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you're interested in seeing more of my Louis Vuitton collection, make sure you stop by my blog on Instagram, The Louis Vuitton Princess, or if you'd like to shop my closet, make sure you stop by my Instagram, Shop LV Princess.